Okay, thanks for sticking it out, guys. Before we get started, and I don't know if I see Amy in the room, but I just wanted to thank Amy so much for putting this together. I think this is a very, very timely discussion. I think she's filled the room with some of the heaviest hitters in the industry, and I just feel really honored to be a part of it. So thanks, this has been fun. I've been learning a lot, and hopefully we can provide a little bit more education here as we go through our discussion of other data sources, kind of completing the picture. So before we get started there, we're going to do some introductions here. In case you don't know any of us and need a reason why you should care what we think, basically. So my name is Ned Lukes. I'm the Chief Technology Officer from Blue Tent. We're just shy of 100 people based in Central Colorado. We've been in the vacation rental space for the past going on 18 years, and very focused on property management, company brand development, direct marketing strategy, websites, promotions, e-commerce transactions, and helping you build and grow your business through both direct channel development and also channel management and distribution and OTA strategy. And sure. Give it to Jeremy here.
Yeah, I'm Jeremy Gall. I'm the founder of Breezeway. We make property operations software and asset management, really heavy on property data and the services that you provide at the properties, which is a growing need in the industry. Prior to this, I started a company called FlipKey years ago, and so I've worked with many of you in the room, and that's about it.
I'm Matt Renner. I'm one of the co-founders and SVP of BizDev for Track, and our parent company is TravelNet Solutions. We've been around for 20 years. This is our 20th year, and we developed resortsandlodges.com. We do digital marketing for many folks. We also developed Track, which is CRM, contact center, and enterprise PMS software for the vacation rental space. And I think what might be unique about our perspective is we work in the vacation rental space, but also the hotel and resort space. So we have data from both sides that we're able to take into our conversations when we give perspective on data and revenue management and that type of thing. So appreciate it.
And I am Paul Hennick. I'm Director of Digital Marketing for Intercoastal Net Designs. We're located on the East Coast, so just a little town called Ocean Isle Beach that has a great tourism market as well. But we're also celebrating 20 years this year, so kudos to that. But I lead our marketing team for search engine optimization, pay-per-click, email marketing, and social media. So we work with clients internationally, nationally, and try to get them to the top of Google, and you know it's tough. So that's our spiel.
All right, thanks, guys. So, I think Ralph talked yesterday about, this gold mine of data that we're sitting on. What we want to talk about here is, there's been a lot of discussion, obviously, of industry data and regional data, OTA data that's available for sale or through partnerships with VRMA and other organizations. And we want to talk about the gold mine of data that is in your systems that's really proprietary to you. This is something that nobody can really sell you because you're the only one who has it. And there's a few places where we find this data, and we want to talk about, I think, best practices in collecting that data, in data hygiene and maintenance, and how that kind of lends itself to improving the performance of all of your revenue management strategies by having good data to start with. And we've talked a lot about, bad data in, bad data out. We're going to talk about how to get more good data in. So starting with, like Jeremy, to talk a little bit about property data and best practices there and pitfalls or concerns that you see.
Yeah, thanks, Ned. So we're much more focused on operations, but part of that operations platform that we do is based around structured data and structured data about your properties. And if you had that, what you could do, we're really focused on revenue management, but as far as a data source, it's about what you could do if you had structured data about the properties and how you could leverage that so much more effectively. So, raise your hand in this room if you own all the properties in your portfolio. Okay, how about anybody have all your properties are exactly the same? Not a lot of hands up in the air in case you don't catch that on the camera. I mean, I think that's the point, right? I mean, every one of these properties is unique. You don't own them, you don't control them. They're filled with so many. We did a little talk about this before with the different attributes, the bedrooms, the bathrooms. Maybe you're going one level deeper on some of these systems. Is there a hot tub? Is there a pool? But there's so many attributes, we call them elements, of the property that you can be collecting and leveraging in your business, certainly for operations, but I think increasingly on the revenue management side. If you're a bigger property manager, at least half of the battle is trying to understand how you effectively set prices and manage revenue intra-portfolio, just with your own properties, right? How are you going to price very effectively within the differences of your own properties, irregardless of what's happening in the market? And so I think, when we talk about data, one of the most important things when you talk about this garbage in, garbage out is really structured data. And I think that's been a pitfall in the industry for quite some time. Your PMS system, whatever you're using, likely has a lot of additional customized fields. You can add lots of information, but then it's really hard to get that comparatively across your portfolio and understand, okay, when was this property remodeled? What's the age of the appliances? How big is this driveway? Can it fit 4 cars, 6 cars? I think there's a lot of, you look at we work, I think sort of like Matt, working in hotels and resorts. We work in hospitality, vacation rentals, single-family residential, and residential property management. And the tools that are being used in that industry to price, whether or not you should buy this property because you can turn it into a very profitable long-term rental are getting very, very sophisticated. How many windows are there in the unit? So how can I tell whether or not there's going to be a lot of light coming through? It's that really qualitative analysis about the properties that I think we're going to see over the next year or two in this industry become really useful on the revenue management side.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. I think there's a lot of important points there too, and going back and looking at your historical data as well, I think it's a really important thing to look at the fact that we're turning over properties, we're getting new properties in every year, properties going out. If you're looking at your historical trends, if that property is no longer in your database, do you have all that data related to those historical trends, or do you just have the bookings and a unit code that doesn't match anything anymore? So, making sure that you have the high quality data attached to all of the economic data and the transactional data in your systems. And, on our side, I'm a total data geek, and APIs are my thing, and I love making systems talk to each other. The whole manual intervention thing kills me. I mean, there's only so much time in the day, and only so many breaths that we're going to breathe in this planet, and there's things we don't want to spend all of our time doing. And so getting this data together in one place, you've got a graph over here from one system, you've got a spreadsheet that you dumped out of this other system. How do they work together? I think those pieces are really fundamentally important. Like, how closely does your PMS integrate with your call tracking system? Does it integrate with your website and the demand data you get from there? And then with the quality of the property data in general, there's been a lot of talk about setting up comp sets and segmenting your data, segmenting your properties primarily. And so if you've got the wrong checkboxes checked on some properties, or this property has an elevator but you didn't check that, or this property has a private pool, not a community pool, but it's got set to a community pool. When you build these comp sets, this is where your garbage data is going to start. You've got the wrong properties in these comp sets, so the data is automatically invalid to a degree. On the and maybe Matt, on the call center side of things, and because you guys run call center and you do property management software and CRM, talk about how all that ties together and the importance of kind of call center and demand tracking.
Well, how the data all ties together is it comes down to profiles of record. Like in any core system, if you're managing a customer, whether that be an internal customer, i.e. an employee, whether it be an owner customer, whether it be a vendor, whether it be a contact, you want one profile of record, and then you want to attach the data points to that profile. And then you want that profile to be able to move within units. You don't have to create a unit every time you get a different owner change. You create a unit, and then all that data goes away because you got this new clean thing over here, there should be a history or record that goes along with that. So structured data, I agree, it's very important, and it's important you have the tools to do that. And if your core PMS record doesn't do that, you should be using tools that can enhance and make sure that those things are clean. As far as how you get that data in and what you do with it, there's different companies that see that in a different light, because I think of revenue management in a true sense. Revenue management is the practice of managing rates day to day and everything. But if you look at the actual life cycle of what revenue management is, what you're actually trying to accomplish, you're trying to create better revenue, right? More profitable revenue. You're trying to create more RevPAR, not just more occupancy or not just more ADR. And so there's different things that you can do as far as not just yielding price, you can yield fees, right? So you can yield fees. I was just talking to someone, they're like, oh yeah, in the summer, it might take 20 extra minutes to clean a unit times 600 cleans because there's sand in them. And in the winter, they're not walking out to the beach, so there's no sand. So the cleaning can be done more efficiently. So am I dynamically yielding my fees based on units that are on the beach during certain times of the year, right? And if they don't have that mid-stay clean where I know there's going to be sand, how do I alert my people who are on the front line to reach out to that guest and say, hey, would you like to add this mid-stay clean? You're going to have sand. We want you to have a good experience. And so to me, the whole life cycle, however that data is getting in via the phone, via text message, via email, via someone in the field, via they walk into the office and they just tell someone, right? It's important of structuring it, attaching it to a contact, attaching it to a folio, attaching that to unit, being able to move it as ownership changes and everything, but keeping it there so that when you do have to make decisions, that you know where to go and you know what to get and you trust the data and it's complete.
A good prime example of that too is we were actually just working with a client a few weeks ago and we were building a automatic SMS/text message/email system to go out. So we were looking at the data that was in there, and especially for the phone numbers. So we're looking at the phone numbers, and these the client has logged a whole bunch of phone numbers, but they put little notes at the end of these phone numbers, mom, or is coming in late, or anything like that. So the SMS system, we have to then strip out the characters, or we have to worry about extra programming because the data isn't really a phone number. So then you have to worry about stuff like that. So you have to go back and audit your own data. And it's good practice to look at your own data every now and then. Just look at it in a table format, so that you can get the full scope and see what's missing. So that's just a real world example right there of what good data is, what you really want, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's interesting. Matt snuck a word in there really quickly, which was profit, which I think surprisingly, it's not a word that we've heard like many times over the last 2 days.
Why not, Jeremy?
I don't know, Matt. This is the beginning of the radio show. But I think it's pretty interesting, right? Like and rightfully so, we're working like top down. We're talking about rev and par and and everything else. But like, it's not just like the sand. I love that example of the sand in the winter. But it's about like, there's a totally different cost structure associated with some of these properties as well, because they're unique. That I really think is the bottom line part of the equation we really shouldn't lose sight of as we think about holding ourselves up to the standard of hotels and using the same sort of KPIs that hotels use. Like, let's start talking about like the net operating income of these units, what our cost structure is for actually maintaining it, and then how that compares to the revenue we're generating on the top line. And I think, I'd hate to see that get lost in the conversation. So thanks.
I like the example too that Paul gave because we see this quite a lot too, and it's when people try to have a PMS that doesn't quite do all the CRM stuff they need. Right. But there's a box there where you can put something in, and so they fill it with something that's not supposed to be there, right? And this is where, I think probably, historically a lot of the PMSs have fallen short on the CRM side of things, and to be honest, rightfully so. It's a very hard problem, and there's great solutions out there. I'm a big believer in, that there's a right tool for the job, and you should make your systems talk to each other instead of going to your PMS and tell them they have to be a CRM, because that problem's been solved. Maybe not perfectly exactly for the vacation rental industry, but it has been solved. And if your PMS can talk to a really good CRM, you're going to be much happier than trying to convince your PMS to build a CRM that's going to start terrible and not get much better, for the next 10 years. So I'm a big believer in open APIs and using the right tool for the job, and not, there was a time, I think probably it was FRS was the last time there was a software where you could run payroll and accounting and maintenance and housekeeping and owner accounting and the whole dang business front, back, sideways on one piece of software. But that went out of vogue. As systems have become more distributed and interoperable, it makes a heck of a lot more sense, again, to use the right tool for the job. Matt was talking about more CRM-focused, more guest-focused data. One of the concepts in hotel revenue management is denials and regrets, and why are people not completing a booking with you? These are things like, okay, well, there just wasn't any availability for what they were looking for, or what they were looking for was too expensive for them. How many people here are religious about tracking denials and regrets in the call center? Okay, that needs to change. Okay, and I understand the call center is becoming, in a lot of cases, a little bit less of the demand channel for everybody. But these are key elements to determining, whether you're close to sold out because there's a lot of demand for that, or you're close to sold out, but not, and then you raised your rates and nothing's moving, and it wasn't really demand. It's there's not enough demand in the market to actually sell that stuff. And I see a lot of the PM systems have some kind of rudimentary revenue management tools where it's like, okay, if you're down to this much inventory, raise the rate by this much. And that's in hotels that makes a heck of a lot of sense, but in our space, if you raise the rate on those last 3 units and they don't book, you just pissed off 3 owners, right? And so in the hotel, it's okay if 3 rooms are empty out of 300, but here it's not, right? So denials and regrets are really important. In the call center, obviously the web is probably one of the biggest demand channels people have. Paul, can you talk a little bit about tracking web activity and how that leads into what data there should feed into revenue management?
Oh yeah, so it's always the first stop, right? The website's the first stop before they call you. It's going to be pretty rare, but that they're just going to call you out of the blue because they saw you in the yellow pages, right? So, thank you. So, whenever you're looking at your customer data, you're looking at probably Google Analytics, or you're looking a bit deeper, maybe looking at Navis numbers, but it doesn't tell you the full picture. Whenever you're looking at your traffic to your website, you see that you got 10,000 people that visited you within the past month, but you got 20 people that booked. What happened to all those other people? That's what you need to figure out, and figure out why they didn't like you, your company, your product, whatever it is. But the website isn't going to come out and say, hey, I read their mind. I know what's going on. It's not going to do it. Analytics is not going to do it. So you do have to kind of bridge that gap a little bit. The good thing, though, is that this is not new technology. We don't have to worry about implementing something new or having to relearn something. You don't have to really wear another hat. There are simple ways that you can look at your Google Analytics data, and we can import when people searched, what they searched for, what dates they searched for, how many results were returned when they searched, and what kind of bedroom sizes, what kind of amenities, oceanfront, ocean view, pet friendly, what's the most popular. So when you start cross-referencing that and looking at your data, and you've got these 10,000 people that have been to your website over the past month, and they're looking for your properties, they're looking for results, right? They're looking for some way to book with you. Now, when they're doing their searches and they have 0 results, 2 results, 3 results, that's high demand. That's high demand you can capitalize on by showing your owners, hey, I got 5,000 people that searched on my website and got 0 results because I need more inventory. I can get the traffic, I can get the bookings, but I don't have the inventory. Hey, homeowner, come on, jump on my train. So that kind of data itself is really what you need to focus on as far as stuff that already exists out there. We don't have to worry about RevPAR or revenue management or anything like that. It's all there already for us. It's just a matter of programming it in so that you can look at it. Same thing with, there's just a basic analytics type of report that you can run. You can see the average number of page views for each one of your properties on your website. So you can see the most popularly, we're coining that word, popular units as far as page views. You can see the average time on the page and the bounce rates and stuff like that for each one of these properties. So when you're looking through this, let's say you've got these 300 properties and you're looking through this list in the past month of how many of these got the most page views and how many of them didn't. How many of them you only saw 20 people visit that page. Then you can ask yourself, why? Why is nobody looking at this thing? And then you go and look at the pictures and you realize that front picture is hideous and you need to change it out to get more interest. You need to get more people looking at that particular property. How many of you in the room have had homeowners ask you whether or not they're getting enough exposure on your website? So thinking in that regard, thinking in that the way that you can help yourself right now, that's the data that I think really you should be looking at and capitalizing on, and you can use it now.
And how you could take that. So a practical way you could use this, right? So you go in and you say, okay, I got a particular owner that they're getting a lot of traffic on their listing on our website. Maybe we're getting a lot of leads if we're still getting leads from lead channels, if they're not all just instant book or direct booking. And then you go into your contact center, your CRM, and you say, okay, over the last 6 months, how many people called us inquiring about checking in on these specific dates? And what type of units were they looking at? And why aren't they booking? And you can pull that in a report. And there's a couple ways you do that, a couple systems. You pull that report, and you take a look at it, and you marry it up to what you're seeing on the site. You marry it up to what your data and revenue people are telling you is what the price should be. And you can start to make some assumptions of where it should be. Then what you could do is, for example, in our solution, you can go in and you could say, okay, I want to create an email targeting these people that searched in this time, that want to stay during this time, that didn't book because of this reason, and if they don't have a reservation already, I want to send them in a targeted email. And I may even want to have, let's say they're a past guest and you have a relationship with them, because many people, who your guests are, right? You've been doing this a long time. They're not completely anonymous. You can go into your CRM and look at their name and see their stay history. So you pick up the phone, you actually call them, and you say, hey, we saw you're not booked again this year. Are you interested in making a booking? And a lot of companies are. It's a manual process, but when you got to fill that home, pick up the phone and make a call and go see if you can make the sale.
Yeah, it's personalization and targeting to a T. It's when you have all those tools available to you. And how many people run like a Navis or a Track call center solution? None of you guys raised your hands when I asked you if you're tracking denials and regrets. There's boxes in that software for those things. You really got to use them. Okay, but
I look at it this way. You should, if you have a couple $1 million coming through any channel, you should invest in tools to manage it properly. If you don't have any revenue coming through there, then you got to analyze it and say, how important is customer service? And if voice is still important for customer service, you should probably have a system to manage that if you're of any size. But if you don't have dedicated people that really focus on those things, it might not make sense for them. And maybe they're the ones not raising their hands, But then there's other tools that you can use to kind of get that type of feedback, whether it's, whatever other tools you could think of. But
do you guys on the website, do you guys send any of that, talking about sort of demand data specifically from the website and specific to the unit? Do you push any of that back out to any of these pricing tools so that they can layer that data across some of the rest of the information?
I don't think so yet. I don't know if anyone has.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting opportunity right now to look at kind of normalizing this data and then pushing it back into these tools, obviously, that you're trying to use to run your revenue management program. The right traveler, right price, right time. We've got on our websites the ability to, every time somebody does any kind of a search, track that. Like Paul was saying, look at particular landing pages, trends over time. Like let's say that you're your oceanfront or your wedding homes pages, looking at historically when those pages are getting hit, when they're drawing the most traffic. those are all things that if we can pull them back in, time into the call center, same thing, call center is keeping track of what dates people are asking for, why they didn't book, if there was nothing available. The website can do all those things too. What are the primary things that people are searching for? And right now, like, what arrival dates are people searching for now? It doesn't make sense to mess around with promos for dates that people aren't searching.
It's not just the dates. Sorry to cut you off, but it's not just the dates too, because they're reading reviews. Going back to earlier this morning, right? You know, in the meeting this morning, they were talking about pulling reviews, and this goes to Jeremy's side of this. But you know, is that property not booking because the rate, right? What part does the actual structured data within the unit and the outcome of the reviews that are attached to that unit, not just on the website, because they'll look at it on the website, but let's not be like foolish. Like, consumers know, like, the website's probably going to cherry pick the best reviews and put them on their website, so they're going to go to other sites to verify, and if what they're seeing isn't matching up with that unit, right, that could be the reason for you never get the denial, because you never even get the call, or you never even get it all that way. And how are you using tools like a Breezeway to pull that data back in, so the property manager goes, this isn't a rate issue. They haven't replaced the old red, who is that, Randy? They haven't replaced the old red couch with the big stain in it for, like, this is your problem. It's not your rate, brother, you know?
Still comfortable, though.
Still comfy.
But no, I mean, I think that's pretty interesting about the website analytics to, you know, Simon mentioned yesterday when we kicked this all off, right? Like, you've got hotels, you've got this hotel probably changing rates 3-4 times a day, making really quick adjustments based on demand. And I think sometimes if we can't get a little closer to the real-time source of how to make those adjustments, so you're seeing you made some rate changes, you used smart pricing algorithms, you changed it, now you're looking at the actual website data and you're making a quick adjustment again, rather than waiting until you look at next week to say, oh, all right, now I'm looking at this year over year, and my yield and my RevPAR is all, you know, I made a mistake, because I'm looking and it's very clear that I adjusted rates in the wrong direction. It seems like where we're moving to as an industry is you have to do that much, much faster.
And that's why there's certified revenue managers. And if you go to the Hotel Data Conference in Nashville, when is it? A couple weeks from now, I think, or a week from now. So if you go there's, you know, the whole place is crawling with certified revenue managers who have been trained in school for how to do this. To my knowledge, there is no school course on, you know, in college. Colleges aren't just spitting out CRMEs for the vacation rental industry.
Good.
Yeah. I don't have anything to say to that.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was at the bar with Cliff last night, and I wasn't smart enough to make a video.
No, but right, this is like, I've said this in the context of some other things, but not to pile on here, but since you lost your train of thought, I will. You know, it's unfair, right? It's like it's 10 times harder in vacation rentals than it is in hotels to do this correctly. So you're at a very unfair disadvantage to try and optimize this because of the unique nature of the inventory and because of the different, you know, the hotel rev manager doesn't have to sit here and think like room 103 wants to maximize revenue this year versus occupancy, whereas room, you know, 200 doesn't care about that.
Yeah, I think when I saw the pivot that Rented did, you know, because I was like, oh, how's it going with the owner acquisition? They're like, oh, we pivoted. I'm like, why? They're like, well, it's growing 10 times faster. I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. But then, you know, you look at how difficult this process is, and it's like it's very clear in why they did it, but why it's such an important part and why there's so much value in what they're doing. And I'm sure there'll be other companies that crop up trying to do this, but it's really difficult. And, you know, it'd be interesting to see, because in the hotel space, you got Duetto, you've got Rainmaker, you've got like these long time established, these companies that are revenue management companies, been doing it for 20 years, and they're amazing at it. And I bet if we look back 20 years from now, there's going to be those large revenue management companies across this industry that build, you know, very large businesses off of it. because even the hotels, all the independent hotels that we work with, they usually don't have revenue managers. They're outsourcing, or maybe they got one for a group of 5 hotels or 10 hotels. And this industry is so much following that kind of same path that there's a lot of opportunity. Yes, it's tough, but there's a lot of opportunity for winners that get good at it now.
Yeah, I think we're definitely getting a sense from all these conversations that this is, revenue management that has been to a degree perfected in the hotel space. It is really a lot harder here with the kind of inventory that we have. The uniqueness of the inventory. It feels like there's less of a margin for error, again, because you're not afraid of losing room 103, in the hotel space. And what's that?
In the Cono hotel space.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So keeping those rooms full, but having the right data and accurate data to feed those strategies is key. I think one of the points I wanted to make too about some of your web data and other opportunities there is there's some opportunities with your web data to kind of validate your property grouping or your cohorts or your comp sets, or how you're looking at your properties. If you're saying, okay, this comp set is these rated units, in this complex or with this kind of view, but then you go to your website and for every one of your listings, you can it's really easy to pull up on your website like a look-to-book rate on those. What's the conversion rate of these properties, and what's the conversion rate of a particular unit over time? And also, how much traffic am I getting to that unit versus other units? And so you can look at these comp sets that you've put together in your revenue management tools, and then look at the performance of those units individually on your website, and say, hey, I have all these in a comp set, but these units are booking at kind of this conversion rate, and at this time of year is when the demand really comes in, and this is the lead time I'm seeing on them, but this one's an outlier, and why? And again, that's when you start digging in and you see the picture of the red couch and you go, yeah, okay, that one, yeah, that's why. And maybe that shouldn't be in the comp set. Maybe that's messing everybody else's data up.
But I think the point is in the overall scope of revenue management in the vacation rental industry, it can't be looked as rate management. It has to be looked as the entire life cycle and the entire scope of what drives revenue. That includes rates, that includes fees, that includes uniqueness of unit or inventory, it includes location, it includes time of year, it includes property data, and it includes what's going on the website, how easy is it to transact. All of those things play in. So it can't just be a department where you got a revenue manager. The revenue manager has to be tied in with sales and marketing, and the people that are actually doing it, whether they're using a tool or not, they have to be communicating internally, because it's not just one person who's pulling the strings or one algorithm that's pulling the strings.
And it's not always revenue that's the only business factor that you're trying to maximize. I mean, in our space, owner retention, owner acquisition, I mean, those are fundamentally important, and you got to figure out how your strategy might be affecting retention, and if you're overlooking individual owners or certain segments like that.
And let's face it, too, I mean, the hotel space / industry is ahead of us technologically. With the locking systems and the ability to do everything on an app. And, from the technology standpoint, hotels and their ability to manage revenue and things like that, they're a step above us. They have a lot more money than us, obviously, so they have the funds and desire to do so. Now, Google's getting into the vacation rental space, right? So they are trying to be just like Google Hotel Ads for Google Vacation Rentals. And they're having trouble, obviously, because you can easily show the 4 different bedroom types of a Ramada Inn, but you can't show the 300 different types as well as the different rates, the different daily rates, the times. Google is having a very hard time with our data, trying to make it work on their platform. And we've all seen the new map packs that are coming out when you search for your area. Vacation rentals are showing up more and more, but they're trying to force it into the hotel ads platform that they already have. And it's just not working right now. But they're going to keep cracking it, and that's kind of the point, right? Of having, we shouldn't have to change our data. I think Google should have to change the way that they're trying to use our data, because that's just the way it's going. And of course, Google is Google, and they're going to keep progressing forward and try to phase out as much as they can to get that money in their pocket, get that cost per click, get that cost per conversion. But I won't say we have to fight it, but it's going to happen. and they're gonna try to really give more money to Booking.com and people that are these big players. So it's just something to think about in the future whenever we're having to looking at our data and our the way we have our rate structure set up and the way we have our units and everything set up. It's not a hotel, although they might be more advanced. We have our individuality. So just something to think about. It's like we have to take pride in that.
Yeah, that's been a tough pill, I think, for the OTAs to swallow, or really a concepts to get their head around. We do channel management distribution, and so we work with the Airbnbs and Booking.coms and their APIs and their teams. It's to their credit, they have been learning. They're starting to get this industry a lot more. They've published a lot of new features in their APIs that support our rate structures, our types and styles of amenities, support our seasonalities and things like that, the length of stay pricing, adding new features and amenities that just wouldn't be in a hotel system but make perfect sense in a vacation rental environment. And as they add those things, it's so important to be able to tick the boxes. So in OTA distribution, same thing. If you don't have the right amenity checked, or you don't have the ability to support the amenity in your property management system, but it's a key amenity on the search on Booking.com, when people check that box and hit search and you don't show up, you're not doing yourself any favors. So having the data, everything that is in your PMS, being able to map into these channels, and mapping to these new features. I think when we started with Airbnb, they supported like 17 amenities, and now they're up to like 29, and a lot of them have been added to support specifically homes, vacation rentals. Booking.com's been doing the same thing. And we need our softwares and our integrated systems to keep up with those moves so that we can stay relevant and stay at the top of the search results or even show up.
Yeah, the hotels, it was talked about this morning, but many years ago, they all came together and created the HTNG standards, right? And that was talked about this morning. And so it's not that they have more money, or the money isn't the issue. It's standardization, and they have standardization. Because you have standardization, then it makes your investments in technology and things of that nature more efficient. And the rate of adoption, I think, is actually incredible, what I'm seeing in the vacation rental industry, because I'm seeing a lot of hotels are way behind the rate of adoption and what vacation rental managers are doing in this industry. There's just a lack of standardization. So it's just stuff's all over the place. You set up an amenity and you got to map it to. It's a freaking iron. Like, how many ways can you describe an iron? Like, you know what I mean? But you got to map it, and so hopefully that stuff, I think it'll get standardized as everyone puts a focus on it. And I know Steve Milo and Lynn were leading that this morning in the group, and that's going to help everyone get the data clean to then be able to make better decisions off of that data and not have to worry about the mapping and all that stuff.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see a focus on. This has come up a couple times as well, right? Common nomenclature, just calling things the same things. It'd be nice to see some standardization around rate tables and how we think about our rates. It's a severe disadvantage, I think, in the industry. And I would expect for all the rest of you, I luckily dealt with rates a lot at FlipKey. I don't have to do it anymore, which I'm pumped about, because it's a real pain in the ass.
Congratulations.
But for you guys, I mean, do you guys help coach your clients to? You were talking to a client last night about the rate tables at like midnight last night. Do you sort of like to help them understand their data more? Are you like coaching them through, some of these issues to standardize the rates so that they can then make better adjustments, use the data more cleanly? We're talking about this garbage in, garbage out. We're talking about RevPAR, but at a very most simplistic baseline, you take Jason Sprinkle's scenario about like, I'm going to charge $2 versus $3. Like, it's very difficult across a market to even determine what the commonality is, depending on how a manager here and the other one on the other side of the street is setting up their rate tables to try and find that.
Yeah, I've honestly, I've been on a soapbox for about 12 months. I do think that length of stay pricing is the silver bullet in this industry, and it's going to take a while for everybody to, I think, really get their heads around what it is and what it means. But I love to show clients when you map out like a length of stay pricing table, what you'll see is when you have minimum stays or 7-night increments, you have these huge gaps of things that, like you say, people go to the website, they search for a 6-night stay. You've got 0 properties. They search for a 7-night stay. You've got 400 options. Why? Why does that make any sense? If I wanted to stay for 6 nights, couldn't I just pay for 7? But so if people are going to come to your site, search for a 6-night stay, you could sell it to them for a rate of 7. They'd take it, they'd buy it, but they see 0 results and they go somewhere else. So length of stay pricing, what it does is it enables us to not have rate tables and rate rules and adjustments. You just have an arrival date, a number of people, a number of nights you want to stay, this is how much it's going to cost you. And we can take these huge gaps of impossible stays off the calendar and still protect your RevPAR, maybe even increase your RevPAR and your occupancy, and I've seen a lot of people do it. So I'm a total one-trick pony about length of stay pricing. Like that's the next best thing in this business, and everybody should jump on that bandwagon.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Warm applause for our panel. I had 2 options at this stage. One was to bring 2 red sofas up and a couple of bottles of red wine and let them yakking on, or cut it here. You've guys done a great job. You opened a lot more boxes of worms than anything else, but I hope you don't feel depressed. I think Jeremy was very nice to sort of tell everybody, hey, don't worry too much. It's harder than what we think, so we accept that. Thank you, Jeremy. Another takeaway, which I liked a lot, and unfortunately it's Jeremy again, but price for profit. And I think we can just let that sit. And that's such a good point. We got so much lost in the weeds that we really forgot that we actually need to make money at the end of the day. And look at our margins, and our margins all the way down, I think is super relevant, and just not forget our profitability. And sometimes it makes sense not to price and just to look for profit. So I would call it prices for profit.